Some startups go up, others go down. Welcome to GeekWire's Elevator Pitch, where 3 entrepreneurs pitch their businesses in the 32 seconds it takes to get to the top of Seattle's historic Smith Tower. Over the course of 4 episodes, we'll narrow the field from a dozen entrepreneurs to one winner. In this episode of Elevator Pitch, presented by PACCAR, we'll hear from 3 startup founders as they pitch their emerging businesses to our panel of leading investors and entrepreneurs. Let's meet our judges. T.A. McCann, a serial software entrepreneur, investor, and professional sailor who sold his last company to Google and counts Rival IQ and more than a half dozen other startups to his name. Heather Redman, power broker and former Getty Images executive who cuts deals as managing director of venture capital firm Flying Fish Partners. Darren Siver, the PACCAR senior vice president who is positioning the manufacturer of Peterbilt and Kenworth trucks for a new era. The clock is ticking. Jump on board and ride with us on the elevator pitch and find out which entrepreneur has what it takes to make it to the top.
Hi, I'm Virginia, founder and CEO of Betahatch. Around town, they call me the Bug Lady.
Welcome to Smith Tower.
Betahatch farms insects as the world's most sustainable protein to feed animals. By the year 2050, we're gonna have to produce twice as much meat as we do today. But 1/3 of all our crops already go to feed animals. And most of those ingredients are regional, seasonal, and vulnerable to climate change. Insects, on the other hand, can be grown year-round, indoors, under controlled conditions. And we can do that at 5,000 times the acre yield of soy, using less than 1% of the water. Using our genetic stock, our trade secret methods, and patented equipment, we grow better feed for our food. Hello.
So where are the snacks?
The snacks. Well, we're actually not in the business of directly feeding humans right now. There's a growing interest in edible insects for humans, but there's a lot of marketing challenges. With animal feed, there's no marketing challenges because if you think about it, what are birds, fish, other animals eating in the wild? What's a natural part of their diet? Bugs. So we don't need to convince them that this is delicious. In fact, they call the mealworms that we grow chicken crack. They go crazy for this ingredient. So that market is also just much larger. We're talking about a $400 billion global market in animal feed. So huge opportunity.
Have you trademarked that name, chicken crack?
We have not. We've got trademark on Betahatch.
Okay.
Our core competency and our core business is really in the production of the insects.
How scalable is this?
We'll be producing a ton a day at our next facility, which is still very small on the scale of these markets. We see an immediate $500 million opportunity in North America in the feed markets that we have here domestically. Globally, fish meal, one of the ingredients we're looking to replace, is about a $9 billion market. And there's a lot of potential there because this is an ingredient that changes with El Nino, has a lot of instability in the supply chain. The pricing has been going up and also been unpredictable. So those are, the stabilization of insects can really add value to those customers.
What kind of margins do you have in this business? Is this going to be dependent on your production methods, or is this dependent on a particular strain of bugs that you've developed? How are you guys going to drive, sort of venture scale margins on this business?
So it's definitely, kind of a sum of all these parts. Growing insects is actually really hard. You think, oh, I grow fruit flies on my countertop all the time. Can't be that hard. But at this kind of scale, at a food grade production facility, and at the cost that we need for agriculture, there's a lot of technology required. So as far as the margins and the return, right now, Betahatch, because of our distributed model, we are sharing in some of the value with our ranchers. So those partner ranchers, they get about a 30% margin on their production. We get about a 25% margin on ours. But of course, we have far fewer overhead financing operating costs. If we were to do it all ourselves, we'd certainly be getting into more of the 40-50% margin territory, which in agriculture is phenomenal. Most farmers, if they get a single-digit gross margin, they're happy. So this is actually a very good product for this kind of market.
Is big food out to stop you, or are you in league with big food? How, are you swimming upstream, or do you have the current with you?
Well, Cargill just announced a partnership to help promote insects as a feed ingredient. Skredding, which is one of the largest aquafeed producers in the world, is also currently selling an insect-based product. So there's a lot of market buy-in. The entire market is very supply limited though, which is why even though there's some players that are further ahead in terms of scale to where Betahatch is, we see a quick possibility to be capturing that market share. So there's a bit of a first mover disadvantage because they've had to do a lot of market development, regulatory work, and we can kind of swoop in. It's really going to come down to who operates best and who has the most scalable strategy. And I think that our approach, which is a much more easy to sort of scale with demand, as opposed to taking these big leaps and jumps with very expensive factories, I think that's a much more winning approach.
I had a little bit of concern about what's going to keep the market from getting flooded with competitors, and with those margins and with that opportunity and the size of that space. The other concern I had was their strategy seems to be a little bit predicated on being the best operator. And operational efficiency isn't really something to build a strategy on because everyone will rise up to that level of efficiency eventually. They need something more unique, I think, in their business.
You nailed it. I mean, we use the phrase a lot, what's the moat? And sometimes you're just like, hey, there is none. It's just about speed to market and being well capitalized and getting it done. And then operational excellence is a key element. But in this case, I would want to drill down further on what is the moat. It sounds like they've got some patented equipment and they've got a genetic strain, but probably not a patented genetic strain.
It's scary to think about a Cargill coming into the market,
right,
or these two very large, presumably very well capitalized companies coming into the market.
Yeah.
Their ability to move up and create enough volume to be a player will be capital intensive and or operationally intensive. So it's interesting to think how could they meet that demand properly.
My name is Christoph Krumm, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Sironix Renewables.
Welcome to Smith Tower.
At Sironix Renewables, we're developing better performing, eco-friendly ingredients for cleaning products. Our new active cleaning molecule works 100 times better in hard water conditions, which eliminates the need for additives, so that we can make cleaning products that are better performing, better for the environment, and cheaper. We're currently piloting our material in eco-friendly laundry detergents, and we plan to scale the technology in 2020. We're excited to make your laundry greener, so that your conscience can be as clean as your clothes.
What does 100 times better mean?
Sure. So, and I can show you some samples here, but basically what happens when you have a cleaning product in hard water is that it forms a solid. So, for example, the molecule that would be in a Tide laundry detergent, which is what's in that vial right there, forms a solid, which isn't going to do a whole lot of cleaning. If it's in your shampoo, it's not going to rinse out of your hair, for example. So ours functions in concentrations of hard water 100 times greater. And so in Seattle, that might not be as big of a deal, but in undeveloped countries where there's limited ability to pre-treat water, or in the Southwest where there's well water and other hard water applications, that is a really big deal.
There's a lot of eco-friendly, super concentrated laundry detergents on the market today. How are you leapfrogging those folks?
Regardless of whether it's hard or soft water, we can clean better, but especially in hard water, we can remove stains better, and that's a huge performance benefit. The other is that we can eliminate the need for those additives that they're putting in right now, so they can either make their products even more concentrated, or they can kind of give themselves a little bit more wiggle room in developing those products to function better.
You mentioned cheaper in your pitch. Give me some example of that, or put it in context for us.
Right, so we're looking at roughly a 5 to 10% cost savings. Biorenewable materials always cost more. That's kind of the inherent challenge of them, and that's what eco-friendly formulators are faced with right now. But if we can make something that performs better and eliminates that additional cost of those additives, now we're something that's either at cost parity or a cost benefit for them and performs better.
So how do you convince a retailer to put your product on the shelf once it makes its way through the chain?
So we're not actually going to put a product on the shelf. We're piloting our materials with formulators of eco-friendly products. So right now we've got an ongoing pilot with a major manufacturer of eco-friendly cleaning products, something that you'd see on the shelves of Whole Foods, for example. With that, we intend to sort of generate the momentum that we need for ultimately to either supply them at a very small volume with toll manufacturing or sell the technology to a chemical manufacturer.
Do you imagine that product working in sort of developed countries or underdeveloped countries, given this hard water, soft water kind of scenario? And where do you plan to go first, or where does the manufacturer plan to go first?
So I think a manufacturer might actually go to a relatively undeveloped location first, and that's for two reasons. One is they have a huge challenge with hard water. And so there's a big challenge to overcome there, and oftentimes they're working with non-municipal water, and they're using cleaning products not only for washing their clothes, but they also shower with the same product. They also hand wash with the same product. It's all done with one component. And the other is regulatory, that there's less of a regulatory barrier to get across. Here in the United States, we have EPA approval, which we anticipate succeeding with, but that's an additional time frame.
Is there any larger commercial applications of this, or can you branch the product out into something that's got some really a different scale, perhaps?
Actually, these ingredients are used beyond just cleaning products. So they're used in agricultural chemicals, they're used for oil spill remediation, they're used in inks and coatings. All of these applications have this unified challenge of hard water or other sort of particulate in water that they need to get around, and they currently dump a bunch of stuff into that. Whatever that stuff is, varies by application, but it's sort of this unified challenge that they face with these types of molecules.
That was interesting, but I continue to think about what is the right market for them, and if you're going for this, what presumably is our market of the developed, generally soft treated water, not that useful, or the hard water, which may be a whole different sort of economic structure, distribution structure, and sensitivity toward the sustainability component.
I'm a little bit confused and probably should have drilled in deeper as to whether it's just the hard water problem they're solving or whether it is also effectiveness of the product. Because I certainly use all of those, dishwasher, laundry, etc., all of these groovy products, and I have felt like I have not been as clean as I used to be. The wine glasses are not as clean as they used to be, which I'm perfectly willing to live with. So I'm curious whether he's got that, because I think this market is much more a market that would be addressed here than it would be in the third world, where they're just struggling to get food on the table and the environment is taking a little bit of a backseat still. And also just being a Western company, I just think it's very hard to enter those markets as your initial first market.
This could be one of those that takes a lot of capital to get to market.
Right.
So if he can't produce his $4 additive for less than $3 or $2 until he gets a wildly large volume, how does he make that jump? How do you get over that point in time from a pure production perspective?
This is like a technology licensing sort of intermediate step here. They're developing the technology a little bit more, and then they're going to license it to Cargill or whomever.
Well, but that's not what he said.
Well,
in
he
that
did.
sense, he said they plan on producing the product, which is an additive.
Or selling the technology.
That's a very different business.
Right.
And either one could be fine, but what is the business they're going to be in, and how are they going to execute that particular business? Because if it's a licensing business, it's fine.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about factories and shipping and liquids and cost. If you're a production company, then all of a sudden you do.
Good morning, I'm Keith McCall, CTO of Pollen Systems. Welcome to Smith Tower. Pollen represents data, visible and invisible, that pervades farms throughout the world. If you don't collect that data, it blows away. Pollen Systems collects that data, turns it into actionable insight for farmers to help them grow better crops. Through the use of drones, satellites, ground vehicles, and near-infrared cameras, we collect that data, turn it into pictures that can then be analyzed and show where there are pests, diseases, and challenges with crops. We do this worldwide, in Chile, in North America, and throughout the world.
what crops do you focus on mostly today?
So we started with wine grapes. We've extended into cannabis. We do other crops like blueberries, raspberries, avocados, and another 6 or so different crops right now.
So where do you get the expertise on the crops? How can you advise the farmer?
We have agronomists on our team who can help us analyze the images and interpret them for the farmer. We actually see in a frequency that's higher than what the eye can see, okay, with our photos. And red spots will actually show plants that are actually not growing effectively. Green or blue spots will show plants that are growing very well and perhaps too well in some examples.
What's the business model? What's the pricing strategy and the go-to-market?
Yes, so we price on a per acre, per flight basis, ranging anywhere from $10 per acre down to $4 per acre typically. A typical farm will actually engage us. So for instance, in wine grapes, we'll fly over every week from about March through October. So it's that number times the number of flights, which turns into, say, for about a 100-acre farm, about $10,000 a year in revenue for us. Our margins are about 60% on that.
And what are you selling when you sell that? I mean, what are you saying, hey, you got to spend all this money with us? What does the farmer get out of it?
Yeah, so we talk about our business as technology-enabled services powered by data. Okay? What they get is the ability to actually predict the harvest amount, how much they're going to be able to harvest. They're able to actually adjust either pesticides at the beginning of the season, where they couldn't actually see it with their eye. They can now see specifically how much pesticide do I need to apply in a specific area, how much fertilizer do I need to apply in a specific area. And they can see through our graphs exactly how the application of those products, including water, for instance, actually impacts the health of the crops.
So if I'm a farmer, how do I think about my return on paying you to fly over my acreage?
Yeah, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish as to what return you'll get from the solution. Some folks who are doing wine grapes, at certain points in the season, they actually want to stress those grapes, okay, so that the fruit is actually more flavorful and makes better wine. So they're looking for something a little bit different from someone who just wants to increase the yield of their crops by 10 or 20%.
So are you doing something different than they can do today or cheaper than they can do today?
The agriculture industry is about, I would say, 20 years behind in terms of adopting the latest technology. Okay? They need new tools and new technologies that they don't have to interpret the data that's in the fields. Okay? Today, what a typical farmer will do is they'll walk or they'll take their ATV and drive up and down the fields, which takes them hours and hours and hours to do, where we'll fly over it in less than an hour, and we'll be able to produce the images so that they don't have to actually do that labor.
Right now, how are you analyzing this data? Is this computer vision that has an AI model attached to it that's giving you data based on, what you understand about wine grapes, or is this a human in the loop?
Yeah, so today what happens is we do the flyovers or we do the driving through the vineyards with our devices, our ground vehicles. We collect the images that are taken. They're taken every few feet as the drone, say, travels around the vineyard. We stitch those images together back in our labs, so to speak, and then we do the analysis of those images in-house today. It's all pretty much a person looking at it and highlighting which areas are necessary to address. Within the next year, we'll be applying machine learning and artificial intelligence to make that process more automated as we scale the business up.
But I like the fact that, he talked about his actual economics, and in that sense, the additive price relative to a large 100-acre farm wasn't that high. Right? If you said, oh, that's another $1 million, you'd say, ooh, that's really difficult to prove some potential ROI, but a relatively small price, I think, for a 100-acre farm, and presumably you're going to even just get direct cost benefit in some way with pesticides or fertilizer or water use or something else.
These farmers do this for a living, and it's an art and a science, and they're using both. But how much is this going to be sort of like, I got the weather report too, but that's not.
You've got to convince someone what they've been doing isn't effective, and they might take that maybe personal or there's a little bit of a challenge there, but I think they can overcome that.
And all they're doing is they're kind of adding a bunch of new eyes. They still need the brain, so they're still paying a human to be the brain. and that human doesn't have the inherent experience with that particular piece of land. So, the farmer's got that issue. I do think machine learning could be employed, in this environment.
Yeah, my brain went to sort of all the related potential efficiencies. So let's say that you now can start to time, let's say you're doing asparagus. You're thinking, I need this amount week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, as opposed to all of it coming in week 6.
Yeah.
So can I actually think about a predicted harvest that would effectively maximize my overall labor cost, my go-to-market cost, and ultimately maximize the value of the whole farm.
Your time to market.
Timing, a lot of different timing optimizations, which may be stressing the crops or just picking the harvest, or even optimizing the labor pool, which may go through all the picking.
Great. Well, thank you all. Your businesses are all fascinating, and we're eager to learn more about all of them. So I get to give feedback to Virginia. So Beta Hatch, super interesting company. What we really liked about it was some of your innovative approaches, both on the process that you're building, but also your go-to-market and this thinking about distributed systems. That was also what we didn't like about it, because we were concerned about how complex that was and whether you were going to be squashed by, ooh, that's a good one with bugs, squashed. Yeah, whether you were going to be squashed by some of the larger players in the market who can really do this at scale and have the capital to deploy, and will turn this into, sort of a high production market.
So, Christoph, very good pitch. Thank you for that. I think we learned a lot, and reminded me how much I enjoyed chemistry when I was younger. But I think the chemistry, the unique chemistry you have there is important. We think there's opportunity for the market. There's scalability there. There's a lot of green products out there, and the challenge will be is you're in a very small niche area of that segment, and how to break into that and get some scale to make that go. The chemistry is very unique, and it's a very good, noble product and effort.
Keith, we really enjoyed the pitch, the clarity of the pitch itself. Anytime we have drones, computer vision, AI, machine learning, and already gets a couple of good check boxes.
And wine.
And wine. A few things we really liked about the business was we really understood it via your pitch, and you were very specific about the benefits for the customer, and very specific about some of the use cases. Being able to sort of imagine that grape farmer or that kiwi farmer was helpful for us. Some areas where it might have been improved is this is perceived to be very competitive. So your opportunity to communicate in this instance or that other instance, this is where we displaced competitor X or competitor Y. That's on a go-to-market side, or technologically why this is difficult for competitor X or competitor Y to do.
Sounds good.
Okay, well, they were all 3 great pitches, and I think all good opportunities. But there can only be one winner in this, and Keith, congratulations, Pollen Systems.
I think one of the really interesting things that the judges said to me today focused around how we're going to grow the business, how we're going to scale the business. And I think that tip is invaluable, and we'll be focused on that moving forward.
In our next episode, 3 new entrepreneurs will hop on board the Smith Tower elevator, competing for startup glory. Check out geekwire.com/elevator pitch for new episodes.